And then one more screwdriver that you're just probably going to want to have as a tool that hopefully you don't have to use too often, but when you need it, you really need it. These are flat screwdrivers, or very, very, very low profile ones. And this is the number 2 Phillips. And notice the depth of that head compared to my fingertip. And these are for when you're reaching back into a quarter. Now, they come as a set. I found them on Amazon. My boss had them. I really liked them. There's a slot. Then there's the PZ, that's just like a Phillips, but it has that extra little bit to it. So the head looks slightly different, because you can see the extra teeth besides the 4-way Phillips. There's PZ2 and number 1 Phillips. They come in the set, but where you'll use it is, like I had to use it the other day here to get on that screw. You can see way back down in there, it's tucked underneath the edge of the windshield, and it's just a really tough spot to get into and to try and get a bit. A normal number 2 Phillips is actually be hitting the windshield because of the height, but with this I was able to get in there and hold the head of the screw and then turn the nut underneath that I needed to, right down there in that corner. That's when those come in handy. And it's one of these, you're not going to need it that often, but when you do, you're going to be glad you had it. They're not that expensive. It's like, I don't know, 10 bucks, something like that for the whole set. Another tool that's absolutely worth getting. So I mentioned the anti-cam ribs on the head. You can see them very clearly on this. Bosch used to make these. They used to sell them in like a little Tic Tac pack of like 10 at Lowe's. Not so easy. They don't anymore. Now you're looking at something that has a black iron coating, and it grabs, but I don't think it grabs as well. Snap-on, I believe, still sells these, and maybe some other specialty makers. They're worth the money. I'm hoping I don't run out of Bosch bits before I retire. I'm not sure what's going to happen first. I mentioned these coin slot tips as well. These actually are a 1/4 inch. They fit on like a socket, ratchet type thing. Like I said, it's a horrible design. The edges, because of the way they're rounded, this is the part number of them. And the aircraft that I found these on, and I absolutely hate, and they might show up on Hawkers too, which is another old design that is lousy to work on. But this was on a Jetstream 31. It's made by Hawker Siddeley, which is now part of BAE, which is now part of Airbus. And they had these fasteners all over. The screws had a slot in them that fit that. They were guaranteed to all be stripped out. Any place we could, we replaced them with Phillips until the chief inspector caught us doing that and made us put the real stuff back in. Story I was told is during World War II, they had contracts to make millions and millions and millions of these screws, and they did, and they still have boxes of them sitting around up until the 1970s and 80s when the Jetstream was designed. So they used them. I believe that is the number 1, and that is the number 2. Let me see, what does this say? HTS. Oh, that's a 3 and a 2, actually. I guess I don't have a number 1. I thought I did. And today you're going to run into something very similar, like the noses of a King Air will often have a coin slot type fastener for the avionics doors up on the nose. And these right here on the Snoopy tool are designed to fit into different ones. You can see why they call it a coin slot, because it would look like different sized coins. And they're an absolutely horrible thing, and whoever engineer developed it should be dug up and have something terrible done to him. But they're a horrible fastener, horrible idea. I don't know anybody sticks with it. I don't know why Beechcraft keeps them, but they do. And when the King Air is gone, that will not be lamented by anybody because of these type of fasteners. And I'm really glad the Jetstream was retired by pretty much almost everybody for the same reason. Hopefully hawkers don't have them. I haven't run into any on a hawker, but it really wouldn't surprise me, just because they have all kinds of hardware sitting around and they want to use it. Other specialty screwdrivers. These are more in my toolbox in the hanger, but it comes with a set. These have a dimple right there. You can see it in the side of the bit to keep them from sticking through any further. And then they have a knurled end here to help you turn it with your finger. And these are made by General Tool. It's a ratcheting, reversible, right angle screwdriver. You'll find the teeth on this are kind of coarse. You have a pretty good size swing. The click is tough. You might find it works for you in some places in a pinch, but they're nothing great. In general, a lot of times they make some good stuff, and this is one of their lousier ones. This is one I found online recently. It's come in handy a few times. It's another one of these swivel head type ratchets, but it just has a bit driver. These are what I was talking about with the new tips that Bosch is coming out with. Instead of the anti-cam out ribs, they have a black iron coating that actually does a pretty good job of gripping the screw, at least till it wears away. As you can see, that's about half worn away. And then they just slip off and you throw the bit away. But this is what you'll find now in the Tic Tac pack at Lowe's or Bubble Pack or whatever it is. This is also reversible. It's lightweight. It's aluminum. I don't carry one on the road because it hasn't proved to be that handy, but in my toolbox, a couple times I've used it. Another take on the right angle screwdriver. This is one that has two different size slots. Is reversible. They come in Phillips as well. I've seen them. I don't own one. Every now and then it's handy, but rare, and it's just one of those things, especially if you're in GA. You're going to need the biggest variety of tools you've ever seen. The bigger the aircraft you work on, the less tools you're going to need. And for bug smasher work, you never know. And I have had a few times where this did work and nothing else would get there. Screw starters. These are another great tool to have. I don't carry them on the road, but I do have them in my box and I use them fairly often. This is the Phillips one. And in order to use it, you slide the collar up. So now you have a Phillips bit right there. And you would stick it in the screw. If I can do this one-handed, good luck. There we go. And then you pull that collar down, and those two ears are spring-loaded, and they are holding the screw. So now if you were trying to stick this screw in a place where you can't touch it with your fingers, and you don't want to drop it because you'll lose it forever, this will help you getting everything aligned and started. Like I said, you still got to be careful. You can bump it, the screw will pop off, just like you just heard that click. Now the jaws are spread again. This, I don't even know where I got this. Oh, these are Craftsman. Craftsman used to have them in Sears, but I know you can find them like at a Home Depot or whatever. Probably made by General Tool in the first place. And then they also have a straight slot style. You look at that end. Now what this has is, you see that slot with the cam. Turn it. Push it. Oh. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Alright. Now it's locked in place. You stick your slotted screw on. You push. And see how that is twisting? That part in the middle? That's spring loaded, and so the spring will grab the inside of the slot and hold, and you can start your screw. Very good for things like switches, light connectors that use sort of a ring terminal. Anything that has a ring terminal and a screw to attach it, really good. It's also a Craftsman, but I know you can find them at Home Depot, probably also General Tool, maybe Husky branded, who knows. But most hardware stores you're going to find these. These are some nicer ones, also Craftsman. Sorry for all you guys that didn't live when I did. This one is a little bit different in that you push. You see there's a knob right here, and you push it forward like that. And as you push it, this swells, grabs the head of the screw as you retract it, and now you can twist, and those jaws will grab underneath the head and hold it. And then it has the nice larger style handle, the old 6-sided, or is that 6? Yeah, 6-sided, that you could put a socket over or a wrench if you needed more torque, but good luck. But yeah, it's nice. And then the Phillips, they also had the same kind of deal with, there's a Phillips head with jaws, and you push up on the knob and the jaws spread over the screw head, then they grab it and they hold it on the Phillips while you're turning. I don't know if anybody makes anything like this. You probably look around like a Home Depot or whatever, or look online. If it exists, you can find it on Amazon. But that's how they work. Don't use them that often, but when I need them, they're really nice to have. Last but not least, going through my screwdriver collection, Torx drivers. This is actually a Snap-on. I had T20. I also have T10 and T15. These are old Craftsman ones, old Craftsman professional handles. Don't know if they're ever going to bring that back at Lowe's or not, the rest of the Craftsman Pro, or the Craftsman series, but you can find them in other things as well. But they are a Torx head, and the reason I have them, especially the 20, is I started in GA and I'm back to it again as part of the AOG job I do. We work in a hangar doing GA the rest of the time, and if you work on bug smashers and you have slick magnetos, you're going to need these to get the screws, because you can't use a bit holder because they're recessed very deep inside the casing of the magneto. But they have a Torx head screw. Sometimes there's a slot, but not always. A lot of times it's stripped, or the anti-seize that was put in there, or the Torx seal to show that it hasn't been monkeyed with. It's going to get in the way of it. But with this, you can ram right through that. It's sort of a waxy based stuff, and you can get to all the screws that you need to. And you might need these sizes as well, because some of the slick mags I've found, the fasteners are different sizes, but you'll need this for like setting the points. You'll need this for getting to the coil, the condenser. There's all kinds of stuff inside of a slick magneto, and this is the type of hardware they use. So actually too bad more aircraft don't have, or more components don't use all Torx, but you're definitely going to want that for the bug smasher world, and who knows what else. So I've mentioned this bit that I've ground down. I have a few. This is one basically I took about half the length off the hex part with a die grinder, and it gets in good sometimes for really close in work, and it'll sit back in the bit holder, so only about that much of it sticks out, which gives me the best chance possible of getting into a screw. Other specialty screwdrivers, these I don't find as useful all the time, but sometimes these are the typical right angle screwdrivers you'll find in a set, number 1, number 2, number 3. The twist of the hex head on them, or the Phillips head on them, can actually help to have more than one. These are usually better maybe just holding, but like I said, I showed you that right angle one. I think that's better. I don't use these very often now. Other things in my screwdriver drawer, it's not even really a screwdriver, but it has a handle like one. Valve stem tool remover, removal tool. It's nice to have it with a handle like that, depending like tires, things like that, because you can always go to the old school one, which is, you'll find this, I trimmed the end off of this to be able to spin it. Usually these have 2 different tools for working, cleaning up the threads, chasing them inside of like a Schrader valve on a inner tube stem. But this right here is one you can put over to control the release of air that's coming out of it, so that it's not so incredibly fast. And this right here is a removal. You'll find this like any place, with a bicycle store, bicycle tires are sold, anything like that. That's usually where you'll need it. But on aircraft, you often have to remove the valve stem on a tire to deflate it, because you got this massive tire and a little teeny tiny stem, and it still takes, if you just remove the valve stem and make sure it doesn't go in your eye when it comes out, it's still going to take a few minutes for it to bleed off all the pressure because it's just such a large tire. And then last but not least, I have a whole set of these. They're nut drivers. Particular types of installations, you'll find they work good. These are all Matco. I just happened to like them at the time. And they have the extra thing, you can stick a screwdriver through the handle to give you more torque. But in certain installations where you got to remove nuts off a flat panel with studs in it, they're the tool to use. And then one more thing for screw starter. This is also for a slot. It's probably my favorite one for slotted screwdriver. And yeah, it's a Klein. What do you know? I think I got this at Home Depot. Basically, it has a knob. You push forward, and as you push forward, you see how the tip got fatter? That's how it locks, as these two pieces slide in together. Let's see if we can get it to follow. As I push the knob back, they go straight in the slot. You'd push up with the knob, and they would tension on the insides of the slot on the screw. And I think I've had more luck with starting screws with this than any other screw starter type tool. But like I said, in GA, you never know what you're going to need and what works best with different types of fasteners. So I'd probably start with this over the other two that I showed. Continuing with the theme of what's in my screwdriver drawer, this right here, if you can see those two tiny holes, they are drilled through. Let's see if I can get this to show. Yeah, they are drilled through the head. There's one on either side. And they're for twisting safety wire. I think I got this from Brown Tool. Don't often use it. And it takes a little bit of finesse and playing and probably a couple faults, a couple failures till you get it. But they come in very handy. This is more normal length. Then there's the extra long for really recessed deep things, but they both have that same head for twisting the safety wire just by twisting the handle. And you got to kind of play with the feed of how much pressure or tension you're putting on the wire while you do this. But when you need them, you need them. And I found this PT6 engines, turbine engines in general, there are spots, especially if you're working like a caravan, because the bleed valve for the P3 air for heat, and also drives all the pneumatic stuff on the airplane, is buried down inside of a well, and you just can't get to it otherwise except with something like this. Your regular jet twisters, good luck. This is another one, another coin slot tool. I worked on a fleet of aircraft called the Beechcraft 99, very related to the King Air, except it's not pressurized. And in order to get inside the nose doors, you need one of these. So it was worth buying. Otherwise, you're probably not going to need it, unless you work on a fleet of King Airs and you do avionics work quite often. Stubby screwdriver. This is a Phillips. It fits very well in my hand. If you're working on nicely painted aircraft and you have an open like quarter turns on engine cowlings, it's a lot easier to slip off and gouge the paint with a long screwdriver. A stubby gives you a lot better control of the tip. And a lot of those quarter turns, Cessnas in particular, older ones with the Southco horrible fasteners that somebody should have been shot who created them. It's real easy when it comes loose for your screwdriver to scratch the paint. So I had this custom made by my Snap-on guy, a nice short blade and a good handle. So I got plenty of grip, and I got real good control because of how short the shaft is. So just another idea if you're dealing with any sort of an installation like that with a quick remove type fastener, and you don't want to gouge paint and damage things, and it'll save you a little bit of grief.